Honduras, they deposed that man following the Honduran constitution, step by step, and the present administration doesn't see it that way, and they are forcing Honduras to accept a man who was preparing to rig a referendum, and he violated the constitution of the country, so the Supreme Court of the country deposed him. Let's not go into actual policies today. But so that is another of the great myths. Now I'd like to, I think one said it, and I think he said it very well, but I'd like to read the very ending of the book, because this book is also a cautionary tale. Okay? There is no country, no republic, even the one that had been, you know, under a democratic system for 230 years. No country is exempt from a collapse like this. No country. The complacency that I see in Americans is the same complacency I saw among my countrymen 50-some years ago, when we said, you know, communism could come to Cuba. Oh, no, impossible. That's impossible. We are too individualistic for that. You know, we are almost anarchic. There is no one who can impose on the Cubans that. Okay, well, I think we should look around, not only to the case of Cuba, but other cases, and beware. Remember, the past are condemned to repeat it. And, you know, that is to a great extent. And I would say, I ended the book saying, Santayana's words have particular relevance to the history of Cuba. Having heeded them, may have avoided the calamitous developments which brought about the collapse of the Cuban Republic over the fateful years of 1952-59, and the ensuing reign of terror that calls itself Castro's Cuban Revolution. And perhaps more importantly, these wise words compel understanding what really happened in Cuba that led to the rise of Castro's totalitarian tyranny. Even after 50 years of the reign of terror, some Castro supporters, emphasizers, and sympathizers ignore or dismiss the killings, mass executions, persecutions, and destruction inflicted on the Cuban people. Arguing these horrors are the unavoidable price for a better life and future. They say, oh, well, you know, Cuba was so poor, so destitute, that somebody has to pay for it. It would be well for them to remember what Marquez-Sterling, my dad, often repeated, I quote, those who seek absolute power for their own benefit must soon begin killing people, and of necessity continue killing without end. And those are the last 50 years. And unfortunately, I don't see the end to it. I don't see the end. The end is darkness. Nobody knows. I get reports constantly from my countrymen that the Cuban people actually today, behind the so-called sea curtain, the Cuban people don't work, don't care, not to make opposition to the regime. No, it's just that they just don't want to do it. The spirit of that nation has been utterly crushed. And that's one of the methods that totalitarian states follow. The first thing they do is destroy your dignity as a human being. And I can vouch for that. Because when I came to this country, my dignity had been totally destroyed. It was nothing. finally, after being in Washington for a couple of years, in Maine for another couple of years, and I landed here, and I began to work. I felt like it was when you're filling the tank and you hear the noise. I felt that you people, my friends, my colleagues, whom I worked with, began to return my dignity. I felt it. I felt the warmth almost to the legs here and so on until it was returned to me. Okay. The great question. You didn't know that, Dick. The people you break bread with. Okay. The people who don't know who you are. Not that you didn't come with any dignity, but people that don't know you really, and you make friends with, they begin to return to you that dignity. They exude dignity. But how are we going to return to the Cuban people their dignity? And I sat, thought hard, and I said, well, I could do a little contribution by writing this book. I'd like to finish by saying this. Keep those words of wisdom in your heart. The Cuban people didn't fail. The Cuban people who every morning got up, went to work, came back, raised their families, went to the movies, and to the ball games. They love the ball games. The Cuban people, the salt of the earth, didn't fail. You know who failed? The intelligentsia, the thinkers, the professors, the writers, the artists, what makes the intelligentsia. They hated Batista with such a passion that they coined this expression, anybody but Batista. Okay. And when you reduce a formula to that, anybody but Batista, you are in deep trouble. And then that intelligentsia sold Castro to the Cuban people, knowing very well that he was a thug, that he had communist connections. But in their desires to destroy the regime of Batista, they made him look like he was Jose Marti returned. So those are the ones who failed. And I write it right here. Those were the ones who failed, who should have warned the nation what was behind it. But you know why they didn't do it? Because they follow exactly the same path to hell that the German politicians did in the late 20s and early 30s. The German politicians said, we made Hitler a chancellor and in 2 years we get rid of him. And this intelligentsia exactly reasoned exactly the same way. We made him, we will name him the chief of police, and in 2 years we get rid of him. They've been the longest 2 years of the history of the country. And when you pick the book and you begin to read it, you ought to know that the history of Cuba, the history of this nation, has been the most falsified, forged history in the history of humanity, of mankind.